Hey yo, welcome. We are live with episode 201 of Voices of Revival. We are joined tonight by my friend Kyle Shaw. Kyle, hello, welcome back to the podcast. How are you, my friend?
Hey, Brad, doing great.
I appreciate you being on here with us. Appreciate your heart. Kyle, I just love you. You're the best. I wish everybody was like you. If everybody was like Kyle Shaw, the world would be a very good place.
Yeah, I can see that. Um, I wasn't always like that though.
Yeah,
So it definitely took a lot of grooming. In fact, my wife and daughter was just talking about where I would be if I didn't marry my wife.
yeah.
So yeah, that
I
was an
can
interesting conversation.
I can relate. I would not be a good person if not for my wife.
That's right.
We though are in the mix of a 21-day run of podcasts every single night. It is part of the build up towards the upcoming Riverfront Revival, and as we do these 21 podcasts in a row, we're just sitting down with people and asking the simple question: what's your story? Where has God brought you from? Tell us about the moment He saved you, and tell us what He has done in your life since you surrendered everything to Him. So, with that said, Kyle, at this time, I'm just going to turn it over to you. What's your story,
Sure.
my friend?
Yeah, so I grew up here in Miamisburg, Ohio. Lived here until about the age of 10 and then moved to Riverside. But growing up here, I grew up in an abusive home. Didn't know my biological father the first 10 years of my life. Was pretty much raised by my grandpas, my uncles. My mom had me at a very early age when she was 17. She did go on to finish high school, but um, it was I tell people you look up the epitome of dysfunction, and that was us. Like it was crazy. It was chaos. It was, um, yeah, it was a mess. I grew up next door to the Orchard Hill gang, so was always influenced by them. Was attracted to the bad boy lifestyle at a very early age. Fast cars, fast girls, fast money. It it was all appealing to me. So I spent a lot of time over there. A lot of time in the garages. My grandpa had circle track race cars, and the bowlings next door to me had drag cars. So we were always wrenching on something at the racetracks, and that's a whole party scene in and of itself. By the time I was 10 years old, I started smoking weed. Um, like I said, we moved from Miamisburg to Riverside, and I have a half sister who's 9 months younger than me. So got to Riverside, and her friends was doing drugs. So naturally, they became my friends, and I started doing more drugs with them. By the time I was 15, I'd done every drug there was except for crack and heroin. So ecstasy, special K, acid, you name it. We were doing it. Crystal meth. Um, Walked in the front doors of Stebbins High School out the back. Came back at lunch to sell drugs and went through the ninth grade 3 times before they finally kicked me out and told me, don't worry about coming back. And life was just a big old party. Um, all I cared about was sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and that was it. So then I turned 18 and I got sick. I had a rare type of cancer in the back of my head, and they said that the type of cancer that I had was normally in like 70, 80-year-old men's legs, and they couldn't figure out how it got in the back of an 18-year-old boy's head. I always tell people, like, you seen that movie Aaron Brockovich? And that's how it happened. We got EG&G Mound right here. Used to go there for school field trips. My grandma worked there. Used to swim in the pool at the bottom of the hill. Used to fish in that pond, play in the dirt, all that crap. And lo and behold, I got this very rare type of cancer. And that was in 2004. So at that time, the internet had just become a big deal. They put me on research journals. Over 300,000 doctors reviewed the case and had never seen anything like it. They sent me to the University of Michigan because at the time they had the best cancer research facility, and just nobody could figure this thing out. So at first they said, "Oh, it's just a cyst or a fatty tumor. We'll cut it out. No big deal." So they sent me to a general surgeon, and he tried. He tried to cut it out. Laid me down on a operating table in his office and did local anesthetics and tried to cut it out. And, it ended up rupturing, and blood flowed all down my ears and filled up the pillow. And he started freaking out. His nurses started freaking out. So I started freaking out. And finally, they got the bleeding to stop. And he said, "Look, man," he said, "I don't think that's a cyst or a fatty tumor. I think that's a malignant tumor." And I said, "Okay, what do we do about it?" He was like, "Well," he said, "I have malpractice insurance, so you could sue me, or I can get you in with the best neurosurgeon in the world." And I was like, "Okay." I was 18. I didn't really care about money. I was like, "I want to live." So he got me, and Dr. Bernstein at the time was the best neurosurgeon. He was famous for doing back surgeries, and he was on the list to operate on the president if anything happened to the president. So this doctor got me in with him, and um, he was able to cut it all out, and um, it was a success. But through that process, I started taking chemo and radiation. Radiation made my teeth fall out. Chemo took me from 190 pounds to 150 pounds in less than 2 months. Um, I was literally dying, like not from the cancer, but from the treatment. And it got to the point to where they quarantined me to my apartment. That my immune system was so compromised they didn't want me to leave the apartment. And lo and behold, one day my daughter's uncle walked in. He had a pipe in his hand. He said, "Here, man, hit this." I said, "What is it?" He said, "Crack." I said, "Nah, I'm cool." He said, "It'll make you feel better. I guarantee it." And I figure, well, I'm dying anyway, so I might as well. So I took a blast and was up and bouncing around the apartment. And lo and behold, God delivered me from the cancer, but here I was, a crackhead. So that's how I caught my first case, my first drug case. I got caught with a quarter ounce of cocaine on the west side of Dayton. They get me what they call ILC in lieu of conviction. Had I completed probation and the programs that they set forth, I wouldn't have gotten in trouble. Wouldn't have went to prison. It would have been like okay, you learned your lesson. We're going to wipe this off your record type thing. But I was my addiction hadn't even fully transpired yet. It was really just getting started. So, needless to say, I couldn't complete that program. In and out of jail, treatment. Finally, ended up going to prison. Served 6 months at Madison Correctional Institution, and while I was in there, like I had tried to change, quit smoking cigarettes, got my GED, started working out real hard. Was trying to better my life, trying to make the best out of the situation. Um, I didn't really dig into God or spending time with the Lord. Um, that just wasn't my focus. I did grow up in church and I knew of God. I knew I needed God in my life, but that at that point in time, that wasn't my focus. So I thought I just needed to get a good job and come home and be a good dad. Found out that my girlfriend was pregnant with my oldest daughter 2 days after I found out that I had cancer. So had a little girl through all that, and became addicted to crack and went to prison, and thought I just need to come home, straighten my life up, get a good job, be a good dad, and everything be okay. So, came home from prison, and that lasted about 2 weeks. And then I was smoking crack, I was selling crack, I was doing anything and everything I could to support my habit. Um, and my uncle lived with me, and he was bipolar and manic depressant. And he would go through these stages, these episodes where he'd quit taking his medication and he would just wig out. I had just went to the doctor and got a prescription of Xanaxes, and he was starting to wig out. So I figured if I gave him a handful of these Xanaxes, I could get him calmed down, get him to hospital, get him, you know, back on his meds, and everything would be okay. What I did not know, though, was that he was already taking methadone. And so I gave him a handful of purple footballs that helped to overdose him and kill him. The next day, my grandpa found him, and later that day, I pulled up and he pulled a Glock and put it to my forehead and said, "You killed my son, I'm going to kill you." Right in front of my little girl, who was like 3 at the time. And I don't know. I got high on them same Xanaxes and figured, well, he can't shoot me if he doesn't have any guns. So I stole his guns. Somebody ended up telling on me, wore a wire on me, and I got caught. So went back to jail and sat in the county jail for 5.5 months on that case. Not because I was trying to get out of it, but because they were trying to figure out what to do with me. So they wanted me to go to the Monday program, but I had refused the Monday program before, so I wasn't eligible. I was facing 40 years max. Uh, my grandpa, he wrote a letter and told the judge that he didn't want to see me go away for the rest of my life, that he wanted some leniency on me. So they said that I had successfully completed probation once before and thought that I was probationable material. And but I had screwed up the Monday program. So I went back and forth to court for like 17 weeks. Like it was every week I had to go to court. And that was the hardest jail time I'd ever done because I had such a big number hanging over my head and didn't know what was about to happen. So back then it was under the old law, and I had 8 F3. So 4 grand theft of firearms, 4 weapons under disability. And each charge carried 3 to 5 years. So max, I was looking at 40 years. Um, I didn't think I would see that much time, but I did just get out of prison, so I figured I'd see at least 5 years. But my grandpa writing that letter, it helped a lot. So I remember on sentencing day, the judge said, "All right, Mr. Shaw," he said, "I'm sorry, I have no other choices but to send you to prison." He said, "I'm going to send you to prison for 1 year. I'm going to run all these charges together." And I was like, that was a huge relief, right? Like, if anything, you'd have thought that would have been the moment that I would have surrendered to God. Um, I did in a sense, but not fully and not wholeheartedly, right? Like, I was, I would say I was toying around with Christianity. So I started to read the Bible a little bit in the county jail, and of course I was praying foxhole prayers like, "God help me, get me out of this. Help! I'm in trouble. I don't know what to do. I need you." So I went to prison, and I picked up this big, thick picture Bible. Matter of fact, I still got it. And I read it front to back. I didn't like try to pray. I didn't try to figure it out. I didn't try to incorporate it in my prayer life or in my life. I thought somehow just like by osmosis or something, me reading this book, it was going to change me. Um, Needless to say, it did not. So finished my jail time and came home. Um, and my drug of choice when I went to jail was pills, pain pills. I came home in 2009. I was in prison from '08 to '09, and they started cracking down on all the pill mills and the doctors that were allowing people to doctor shop, and just the whole Oxycontin epidemic and all that crap was happening. So heroin started popping up, and um, my kid's mom, my oldest daughter's mom, she had started messing around with heroin while I was in prison. So I came home, and we were trying to find some Percocets and couldn't find any. And she was like, "I know where to get some heroin." I was like, "Nah, I'm not sure about that stuff." And she was like, "Why? It's like Perk Tins, but it's cheaper and it lasts longer." I was like, "Okay, I'll try it." And before you knew it, I was strung out. And long story short, I was in and out of jail, in and out of treatment, in and out of the methadone clinic. Um, yeah, tried Suboxone, tried methadone, tried just all the easier, softer ways. I just didn't want to surrender. I thought I could substitute one drug for another. I thought I could control it. I thought I could uh, just put everything down and just smoke weed and hustle and just be a part of the bad boy lifestyle. Um, so I'll fast forward. September 5th, 2013 was the last time I got high. Up until that point, I had been doing what I considered good. I was smoking weed and popping pills here and there, but I wasn't smoking crack. I wasn't doing heroin. I wasn't doing anything crazy. The first of the month rolled around, and I had a couple pill deals set up. And I told this girl I was with, I was like, "Look, we're gonna get high tonight, and then tomorrow we're gonna go back taking these Suboxones, and everything's gonna be okay, and we can do this." And it was just lies and manipulation and drug fueled craziness. Ended up on a week long bender, smoking crack, doing heroin, robbing and stealing everything in town that I could. If it was bolted down, I was going to get bolt cutters and coming back, and it was chaos. So I got arrested at like 3 o'clock in the morning, threw half a gram of heroin over the fence so I wouldn't get caught with it. Got my grandma's car impounded for like the fifth time because I was using it to steal stuff and hit licks, and it was all bad. So I got to the county jail and I took a deep, long, hard look at my life. Here I was, 29 years old. I, I was busted, disgusted, not to be trusted, and just sick and tired of being sick and tired. So I did the only thing I hadn't tried yet. I hit my knees and I surrendered. And I prayed, "Lord, come into my life, live in me so I can live through you." And I said that prayer over and over and over until I made sure that God heard me. Because I'd been in there before and said foxhole prayers like, "You get me out of this one, I'll never do it again, I swear," and stuff like that. But this time it was different. It was sincere, it was from my heart. And like I wanted to make sure that God knew that. So I was in the county jail for 60 days. Throughout that 60 days, I started reading the Bible, and not like before. I was digging deep in this thing, and I would pray before I read it, like, "God, unlock the messages you want me to receive. Show me something. Why am I here? Why'd you create me? What's my purpose?" My great grandparents raised me while my mom finished school, and they taught me a lot of good morals, a lot of good values. But I'd worked so hard to suppress those and block them out and just do what I wanted to do. So I started praying prayers like, "Lord, remind me of who you created me to be." Um, reveal that to me. And slowly but surely, he started to. And then he gave me the vision for Whole Truth Ministries. Um, so I was in the county jail for 60 days and then went to the stop program for 40 days. The stop program was a secure transitional offenders program out there on Gettysburg. It was like a work release type program where one day you was in the building doing thinking for a change curriculum, and then next day you was out in the community doing community service, whether it was cleaning the parks, cleaning at churches, whatever the case may be. So I had told you that I grew up in church. I actually went to First Church of God on Heineke. Um, and at the stop program, we went to the First Church of God on Heineke. So it was a very humbling experience to go to my home church in an orange jumpsuit and do a work release program there. So what that looked like was we'd go to the church, we'd clean, we'd mow grass, we'd pick trash up, stuff like that. And then the church ladies would cook a good lunch and they'd feed us. And then the pastor would share a message with us at lunch. Um, that was it was good. Like it was God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself, right? Like I had to admit to my pastor I'd been screwing up and come clean about stuff that I was lying about and hiding and trying to keep secret because that old scripture, what's done in the dark comes out in the light, and so it was coming out. So did 40 days at the stop program, and God gave me the vision for Whole Truth while I was on my knees in the county jail. And I thought, great, now I got to come home. I got to go seminary. I got to go business school. I got to figure out how to do all this stuff. And God quickly showed me it's not what you know, but who you know. So when I came home to the same house I grew up in, same house I sold drugs out of, same house that I knew. It was the only thing that I knew. My mom was getting high. She was still in active addiction. My next door neighbor was selling drugs, and um, yeah, nothing else changed except for me. So I came home the week before Christmas, and I would take my little girl down to Rod and Dee's carry out. We'd get some penny candies or whatever, and um, right by the bridge that crosses over the creek, right there by the city building, there's a bunch of remnants from a car accident, a bunch of broken plastic and car parts. And Christmas morning came around, and I woke up and I was feeling just depressed in my head and worried because I didn't have no money, I didn't have no gifts for anybody, and just started reality started sinking in. Um, Started to feel like crap, and so I did the only thing I could think of. I got up and got a broom and a shovel and a trash bag, and I went down there and I cleaned up that plastic from that car wreck. And it gave me a sense of gratitude that I was even able to be able to do something like that I was able to be home. And so I just started doing that. I started walking along the river, picking up trash, just walking around town, picking up trash, doing whatever I could do to do something positive. Start going to meetings. I went to AA meetings, NA meetings, Celebrate Recovery meetings, church, Bible study. I didn't care. Like if it was something positive, I was doing it. I had a motto: surround yourself with positive people in positive places, doing positive things. Then I started volunteering at one bistro. Um, and Robert Adamson, the executive director of one bistro, took a liking to me and started to mentor me and started to pour into me and helped me to create a nonprofit because I had no idea how to do that. I'd been doing drugs for 20 years. I didn't know the first thing about starting a nonprofit. And one day a lady walked in and she was eating lunch and she was from the Montgomery County Adamus board and she said, She was starting a recovery housing program, and Robert knew my mission and heard my vision, and he said, "Hey, I think you need to go talk to that lady." So I went over and sat down and talked to her, and I explained, my story and the vision that God gave me in the county jail, and that was to have 5 recovery homes and 5 businesses. The businesses support the recovery homes, and the recovery homes support the businesses. Meaning that we would get guys out of the houses to do the work. And she loved the idea and was like, "Do you have a nonprofit?" And I was like, "Nope." And she was like, "Well, you need to get a nonprofit." I was like, "Okay, I'll get that started." And then, so what that looked like was there was a state project and a local county Adamus board project where the state had capital funds to purchase homes, and the county used their dollars to renovate the homes. So they found qualified organizations, and they said if you could run it successfully for a year, then they turn the deed to the house over to you. So that is how Whole Truth Ministries opened its first recovery house. Up until that point, we had gathered books like spiritual self help, motivational, inspirational type books, spread those through the county jail, through some prisons. And the idea with that was that a inmate would pick up a good book and want to lay down an old way of life. Because when I was locked up, there was nothing really positive to read. It was mostly just like murder mysteries and novels and crap. So Whole Truth opened the doors to our first recovery home in February of 2017. We became a nonprofit in 2016. So this is actually our 10th year, which we're going to celebrate in September. I think September 12th, we're going to do a 10-year celebration, a gala at a place called The Lift up in Dayton, which is pretty cool because the lift is right by our warehouse. We have a warehouse off of Fifth and McReynolds. Um, so we got the first house in February of 2017. Then got the second house. It was like God added a house to us every year. Matter of fact, our largest house, our Third Street house, we opened right before the pandemic happened in February of 2019. Um, I got a volunteer who brought a basket of Lysol and toilet paper and all kinds of stuff. And she was like, "I didn't realize I was giving you a basket full of gold nuggets right before that happened." So we got up to 9 houses and got a little too big for our britches. We were too spread out. We had houses from Inglewood to South Lebanon and didn't have adequate staff at the time. And so we shrunk it back down. So we let a couple of the house managers take over a couple of the houses. My assistant director at the time bought one of our houses for his starter home. And that's always been my vision, is to help guys become homeowners. I would love to just scoop somebody straight up off the streets, get them into treatment, watch them go through the whole process all the way to becoming a homeowner and raising a family and being a pillar in the local church. So that is the ultimate goal. So we got up to 9 houses. We shrunk back down, got down to 5 houses, which is the original vision that God gave me. It's been so good, man. Like we've seen hundreds and hundreds of guys come through this ministry. Guys get their driver's license for the first time, get their first over the table job. Seen marriages restored. We've seen restoration in families. Guys be able to work their way back into their kids' lives. Um, Man, the list goes on and on. We just recently launched a men's drop-in center. So what that looks like is dudes that are homeless can just walk right in off the street on East Third Street in Dayton. They can come in, they can hang out, they can get a shower, they can get clothes, they can do some laundry, they can get some food, um, receive peer support, get hygiene products, like whatever they need. So a couple weeks ago, I walked in, there was a dude on the couch just snoring, and I was like, man, this is awesome. So, so far that's been open for about 30 something days. We've already gotten 3 guys into treatment. Every day there's at least 5 to 10 guys there, just hanging out, getting fed. It's right down the street from the Dayton Dream Center, and we're partnered with the Dream Center. We love Pastor Pat and what they're doing. We're not trying to duplicate services. We're just trying to fill some gaps that are left behind. There is so much need that not one organization can serve it all. So, and I don't think we're called to. I think we're called to be the body of Christ, and we're all called to do our part and chip in and serve. So that's really Whole Truth niche is we just want to partner with other organizations and fill some gaps and serve alongside of people. I'm a firm believer in I don't need to recreate the wheel. If somebody's already doing it and they're like minded and kingdom oriented, then we want to partner with them and we want to help and we want to just be a part of stuff. We don't want to, it's not about us. It's not about Whole Truth getting the glory or anything like that. It's about just expanding the kingdom and whatever that takes and whatever that looks like. So yeah, me and my wife, we just celebrated 10 years last week, May 7th. Um, like you and I were talking before we start this, I don't know where I would be. Like honestly, her and I got married right before we opened our first recovery home. So she's been with me through this whole journey. At first, she was kind of mad at me and resented the ministry because it took a lot of my time, and she felt like she got the leftovers. But after I learned to practice some healthy boundaries, and she kind of got used to the fact that this thing wasn't going away, that we had to figure out how to work together and how to do it together. We are we're doing it together now. She's also a big part of LifeWise Miamisburg. She just became the administrative director and is working her way into the assistant director for that. So it's really cool to see her serving full time in ministry and me serving full time in ministry. And never in my wildest dreams did I think that I would be where I am today and get to do all this cool stuff and call it work. So that's pretty much it, man.
Such a powerful story. Um, when you surrendered everything to God, in that surrender, did you imagine that God would do the things He has done?
No, uh-uh. Not until he gave me that vision. And that was probably, I don't know, probably about 40 or 50 days of me just on my knees begging, Lord, come into my life, live in me so I can live through you. And when he gave me the vision, I thought, great, I'm not qualified for that. Like, I don't know how to do that. Like, you sure, God? You
Yeah.
got the right one? Like, all that. You know how it goes. You never feel adequate enough.
Yeah. Kyle, let me ask you this last question as we prepare to wrap up. You talked about how in your story, part of your story, like you were raised in church and you had this like background and you knew of God, but you weren't serving God. What would you say to the person that they know of God, but they don't know Him and they're living a life far from Him? What would you say to that person?
I would say be honest with yourself, um, because it's not until you run out of self that there's room for God to work. And it wasn't until I got sick and tired of being sick and tired of trying to force stuff, trying to manipulate stuff, trying to lie, trying to cheat, trying to steal, trying to do things my way. It wasn't until I got sick and tired of being sick and tired of trying all that stuff, trying to do things on my own power, on my own accord without God, that was actually ready to surrender and let God be the Lord of my life. Even the demons know God,
Yeah.
right? So it's one thing to have head knowledge and to know of God, but to know him and to have personal relationship with him is a completely different thing. So that's what it took for me. It took me getting sick and tired of being sick and tired. And that doesn't have to mean that you're out robbing and stealing and cheating and lying and like you know that God's the only thing that fills that God shaped hole in your heart. And it's not until we stop and we let him in to every area of our lives that we will feel satisfied and that God will fill that God shaped hole.
Amen. Amen. Kyle, thank you so much for being here on the call tonight. Those who hung out with us live tonight, thank you. Those watching via replay, thank you. Until next time, deuces.